Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Rez Infinite. So, for the most part, we failed, and I'm failing to find as good of a reason to continue playing Rez. The last thing that we can possibly try here is to get the shot down percent to 95 percentage points or higher for Area 4 and Area 5. And in the process of trying to do Area 5, we can try to avoid taking any damage in that final boss fight to get the good ending. So I'm going to give it, I guess, the college try one more time. I've turned up the mouse cursor speed to the highest, and I'm going to play with the mouse, whereas the game heavily recommended using the cursor and controller, which it, by the way, screwed me in the direct assault mode in the fact that the controller all of a sudden started to be really sluggish on the reticle. Let's see. Yeah, and so that really screwed me over. Then at the end of the last episode, I started talking about how this game, in my own definition, is too wide, and tried to explain the difference between a game being tall and wide, and I didn't bother to mention that the ideal situation is to balance the tallness and the width of an experience in a game to be about equal. That way the scale would then scale up. So as you add more unique levels, if they added in Area 6, they maybe at that point would want to make a new way that you could play Area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 to balance that out. So adding a whole new area would be adding height, making it taller in my mind in this definition, whereas adding a new score attack mode, something like score attack mode that didn't exist before, would be adding width. It's a very Excel sheet mentality. So the only thing that really could go wrong here is I could drop my mouse, I could break my mouse, or I could really just screw up completely. This may be very much a case where the shot down ratio has a high amount to do with, are the enemies shooting bullets back at you? Because if they're getting off those one shots and then I'm not shooting down their missiles, and then that's being counted against me, that certainly would explain a lot. Undoubtedly, I'm not really warmed up to the idea of the other thing that could be lowering the shutdown ratio specifically for this section could be the introduction of these enemies. Not these enemies, but yeah. There could also be enemies in the far distance. They could certainly be playing a role as to a low shutdown ratio. I'm really not even asking myself that much of a challenge here, because if I can get 4 up to 95, that still doesn't mean that I can get area 5 up to 5. So there's still a lot of room for failure. Theoretically, just having something in the reticle and holding down the left mouse click button while I'm playing with mouse really should be good enough. It really isn't though. Perhaps some of that may come down to the fact that there isn't actually enough audio feedback. You're having to potentially listen for the calmness, the silence after the reticle stops counting upward. This is probably a game that at some thought you might think maybe you could have a deaf person play, since it is so audio based, but probably not, because it's probably just not really designed fully through that idea that you would have perhaps a noise increase as the as missiles fly towards you. Yeah, it is actually a little surprising that there isn't this airplane missiles flying towards you sound effect that when something is aiming towards you. Like, it's total silence as far as the green bits there get closer. And as far as the shutdown ratio goes, I don't know if I actually have to shoot down all of these squares. If I did, I would basically need something helping me, infinite overdrives or something. Suppose you can make your hacker avatar have a little bit more personality while doing all of this too. Like, he seems like he should be having fun while he's just accomplishing. Like, I'm way ahead now, and might as well use the overdrive while I can. wouldn't be surprised if this is actually more of a sequence that does just go in circles. And that we are, in this point, really just going in circles. Maybe that is how you just get all the support items, is that you just constantly let this boss fight go on forever. So did we get shot down 95%? Yes, 98%. 0.58. And support items 94.12. But the important point to mention here is that getting 100% of all the support items is the requirement to unlock one of the things. Not sure what it actually is even. Let's not leave since I am evolved, and this would give me a good start on Area 5. But yeah, getting 100% analyzation is fine, but it doesn't help you by giving you even 1 more % as far as your shot down ratio with support items. And the game really does want you to get 100% potentially of all the shot down and 100% of all the support items to unlock everything. It's much more easier, I imagine, to get 100% of the support items, since there's a limitation on how many of those really are in the level where there's a ton of enemies and projectiles. I wouldn't be surprised if there actually isn't a single person on the planet that actually has 100, 100, 100 on each of these levels. But yeah, we can get the boss rush mode now if we do Area 5 and get 95% or more shot down, and we will have another opportunity in that final boss fight to get the good ending by being fully evolved, which is, I believe, the only thing you really need to do to get the good ending. Now, what I want to do is figure out how many shots these guys need. And that first level would have been helpful to figure that out. I think it's 4. And I think I missed one thing. One enemy already. Slowly making progress, and it's slowly just warming up on me. But this is a much longer level, so your expectations certainly are that it would be a shorter experience. Ideally, we want full level full overdrives by the time we get to the boss fight also. Let's see, my question here, since you're weirdly flying in circles here, can you spin around and hit enemies you missed? It's fairly easy to miss things in this level. Now, I guess it's important to point out here too that your final form right now is not the baby form. You only get the baby form after the fact. Like once you get into that final boss battle. And if my weapons were any stronger, you would expect that I would be able to defeat that thing, and I did. So maybe my weapons are a little faster. In particular because noticeably in your final form, you're not shooting a laser, so it is just an instant hit. So that slight fractions of seconds of delay between targeting, releasing, and firing is reduced. Fractions of seconds, really. I guess fractions upon fractions could be any number. So yeah, you can't really turn around. So if you miss something, you're just missing it. Of course, it is also worth pointing out that because this level is longer, there is a higher percentage there. Also, it's easier to get 95% when there's 100 items than it is to get 95% when there's only 50 items. One of the problems with being a game that's fairly subtle here, though, is that it does leave open the room for what I would call, what would I call it? Poor interpretations, unrealistic interpretations. Like, we did see a nuclear explosion being hinted at in this final level. It would be a kind of overly myopic is probably a good word to use, interpretation to say this entire game is about World War II and Japan being bombed by the nuclear bombs. It's like, obviously it isn't. that interpretation doesn't hold mustard under even the smallest amount of scrutiny. But yeah, I could see it being a little bit more difficult to argue against any interpretation when you don't have a solid enough story to at least give a good foundation of what the story is about. There's also an element here in these levels that if you're not playing it over and over again, you really won't figure out what things stay around longer versus what things disappear very quickly off the screen. Doing pretty good here. We've been able to get a lot of overdrives and only use the overdrives when I really needed it. It is getting overwhelming though, even with the mouse, even at the highest input speed, it's still rather overwhelming to try and hit everything. You actually do need the overdrive mode as a feature. It isn't simply there for bad players. And it does just feel a little unfair that once you're at this max level, getting extra level ups doesn't really do anything as far as evolution goes. Getting extra level ups almost certainly should be what leads you to getting a higher score and bonus points. And if in play mode they were hiding the score from you, that's fine. Oh, by the way, we turned on that feature and it didn't do anything, as far as I can tell. So that must be really a feature that only works in score mode, because it's supposed to be showing a score above each of these enemies. Again, I may have missed one person there. Let's see, really that should just be the end of the level, and then there should be a separate boss battle section. So now you're turned into the baby. So we're at the full evolution version there, and now we've taken full evolution to be a baby. So now it's just a matter of not wasting overdrives too much. I could probably use 1 or 2 early, and that's about it. And not taking damage, which for the most part it is just that final sequence where the real concern of damage is. Am I supposed to turn around here? You would think that these spinning green discs would mean something. Whoops. Now there is a slight difference between not taking any damage at all and just ending at the highest level. Whoops. again, I think part of the reason why you could struggle here is the fact that there are not distinctive sound effects for when things are flying towards you, nor is there really too much you can even do. I've just been knocked down multiple times and probably can't recover from this. My only hope would be just to do a lot better. On the rest of these boss fights. Obviously, though, my fingers are getting somewhat worn out with all the mouse clicking. I barely even cleared all these yellow spider-like characters before he's already into the next phase. The good news is, though, his health is actually pretty low. Now if I evolve back up, I assume I still evolve back into the baby. Trying to catch as many of these red missiles as they fly slightly above the white section there. Go ahead and get rid of all those. Now let's try and get the ones on the edge gone first, and then keep a smaller bundle of them over here. That should be it. Right. I'm still just a full health bar low, so unless the game was going to generously decide to give me a full health up or refill my health when we get into the final boss fight. And I kind of question if maybe the mouse doesn't really help you as much in this particular boss fight. Just desperately trying not to die here. Just wait until it starts to jump towards me. we've got 3 overdrives and we're not full of health. So unless we got extra health in this final boss fight, quite a bit, we would need 5 pips to get to full ending. I just question whether that can really happen. It might be able to happen. It might be if I targeted these drone things exclusively. Maybe they would give off a health bar. Yeah, it could be it. Inherently, having to get like 8 to 10 evolution pips to evolve seems a little pedantic in the sense that the game doesn't have a way in which you can lose a single evolution pip. When you take a hit, you lose the entirety of a level. All those drones just get destroyed once you defeat the top and bottom parts. So you can, for the most part, ignore the drones. Noticeably, it also feels like we're just doing this a lot faster. And I assume that is in part because the speed at which you can right-click probably is a lot faster than the speed at which you can press the A button and release the A button. If that is going to give you some kind of reward, though, I think you would have to hit the drones quite heavily. Second to last phase here. Get this last ring done. Yeah, I got a little bit of a health up there by defeating one of those larger drones, but not enough. I'd still need 4. So what if we were to just overdrive quite a bit here? Alright, so I just won, but I wasn't fully evolved. I would have had to have done it a whole other time. The fully evolved baby mode is actually above the final form. Whoops. Either that, or you can't evolve to the baby form. So maybe I could have stayed in that level and targeted more of those larger drones. Hmm. So, still a possibility here that we got the hit ratio, the shot down ratio with the mouse on Area 5 above 95%, which would give us boss rush mode, which, okay, that would be helpful as far as unlocking everything. In a weird way, though, this really is a game that you probably should play through once and see as much as you can do, and then as soon as you hit a real struggle, it would be just as worth it to either stop playing entirely or go and find a 100% unlocked save file and cheat. Like, either way, if you get to 100% save file and cheat, then you can at the very least see several of the elements in the Beyond DLC or edition for Rez Infinite that, yeah, it would have been nice. Noticeably there, we knocked it up from 85% to 93% shot down ratio, but that's still not good enough. So, yeah. Still don't have boss rush mode unlocked. Still haven't played long enough to even start at first form or lock yourself into first form. I think you actually lock yourself in the first form, and locking yourself into a specific form may not really mean too much. I wouldn't be surprised if final form is the black orb and this more alien form, which is how I'm reading it, or Morphean, whatever that's supposed to be, may just be the baby form at the end. As far as beam types, yes, I could play Score Attack level 1 multiple times to unlock all of this, but it's not worth it. And then high score on every single area in Score Attack mode is a huge challenge, and then direct assault on trance mode is a huge challenge, and then getting a high score on boss rush mode, which we haven't even unlocked boss rush mode, would obviously be a huge challenge. The Lost area noticeably doesn't have any of the Beyond options added, so it almost feels like the Lost area was potentially added as an afterthought, or it is literally just cut content from the game that, had they had more funding and more time, they would have made an Area 6 and it would have been the Lost area, but they didn't even have a boss around it. Yeah, and noticeably, I don't know what more you could do with the bosses anyways. There's probably some tricks you could do, but I'm not sure how many you could think of. For instance, the one that's like in the pyramid, it's a little surprising that there isn't a boss that is a 3D pyramid and you shoot the blocks at the bottom and then the blocks above it start to tumble and crumble to expose a otherwise perfectly shielded, perfectly protected orb of energy to shoot at. And yeah, if you were gonna do that and you start to think of shapes and symbols, an hourglass shaped enemy that would spin the hourglass down, and if the cubes as they are moving aren't shot then and they make it to the bottom all the way, then the cubes will turn into missiles firing at you, and a giant barrage will happen once the countdown happens. That's not too different from the circle attack, but it is visually a little different. You could make one that is just a giant spear like shape, just one long rod that spins on a central pivot, and you have to try and shorten the rod all the way to the center. I'm sure I could probably, off the top of my head, think of a few more things, which definitely highlights how you could get to Area 9. I just mentioned 3 new bosses, which would get you up to Area 8 easily. And once you start to have ideas and play with ideas, you can certainly have variations on bosses and work on that. So, yeah, unfortunately we don't have a traveling mode for Area 5, which means there really is nothing else to do with Rez Infinite. Yeah. We won't get the good ending. I could certainly try and play the good ending over and over again. It probably would take me 2 to 3 more attempts. I could try to get the shot down ratio and unlock the boss rush. I don't suspect that the boss rush is actually anything special. I am almost 100% certain that it is just the bosses in a row as we've seen them before, and that the bosses don't act differently or look differently or even have a different color palette. There is perhaps room for a vector-based game like this to have different color palettes where the enemies, instead of being grayish reddish, for instance, could be orange or blue or something just slightly different. Since these aren't textures, it'd be very easy to just palette swap into a different color, and maybe that would indicate that you're playing at a higher difficulty level, or just be an option that players could play with for perhaps colorblind reasons or just for fun. So that means next episode we'll take on Area X. I'll go back to the controller. Now, I do know, because of the achievements and looking at it, that there is several forms of the final boss that I'm not sure if you see all the forms in the first time you beat Area X, or if you have to beat Area X multiple times. Regardless, says there's like different alternate final bosses. Maybe it's not even the same enemy, and the percentage of people who did that are in the 2 and 3 percentage points of the achievements. Achievements wise, I have gotten 6 out of 20, it looks like. They went drastically from you were getting an achievement for beating every level to you're getting no achievements at all unless you do something incredibly time consuming or difficult. So we'll play Area X once, and then we'll probably want to play it in a second time at least. But then that would be the end of the series, and I don't know if it isn't going to take 30 minutes or longer to do a single run of Area X. If Area X turns out to be shorter than I think it's going to be, then we'll just play it twice in a row in the next episode. Anyways, I'll figure that out next episode. That's going to be it for this episode. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me further, there's some links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.